Welcome back to Outrage Science Bites, where we take a bite-sized look at science, technology, and society relevant to the Outrage Overload mission. I'm your host, David Beckmeyer, and this episode is part of our NaPodPoMo challenge, where we post a new episode every day for a month. Today's topic is social media's impact, how algorithms fuel outrage. Social media algorithms have a profound effect on the content we see, and more importantly, how we feel. These algorithms don't just reflect our interests, they actively shape them, often amplifying the most extreme and emotionally charged content. In this episode, we'll hear from 4 experts who offer their insights on how these algorithms work, their unintended consequences, and what can be done to create a healthier media ecosystem. Our first expert is Mike Serrazio, a professor of communication at Boston College, whose work focuses on media production, political communication, and the cultural influence of media. He interviewed political consultants to understand political communication.
And one of the questions I asked of these folks in these interviews in the last couple of years is, in your strategy, which is more important, that you reach people emotionally or that you reach people through rationality? And every single one of them effectively said it's more important to leverage people emotionally. It's more important to some of them would say things like, if I could choose an opponent for my candidate client, it would be somebody who's talking numbers, who's talking policy, who's talking white papers, because people tune that out. It's harder to process cognitively. It's less entertaining. It doesn't catch your eye as much. And also, just to blame it on the media here a little bit too, that type of content is not conducive to what's rewarded within our media environment. It's always been the case that, as the journalistic aphorism goes, if it bleeds, it leads. Television news has long been oriented toward sensational, eye-catching, scandalous, emotionally inducing content. Social media, which has effectively subsumed the mass media, not replaced it, but I would argue subsumed it in the past, let's call it 2 decades, is just as much driven by those logics, right? Because what do the algorithms want? They want content that emotionally engages you, because that is how they keep you on the platform. That's all that Facebook and Twitter and TikTok, any of them want from us. They just want our time. They just want our attention. And the thing that keeps that most is emotionally charged content. That's what goes viral. White papers do not go viral. Rational arguments do not go viral. The media incentivizes content that will create outrage. The media, the platforms, in the way that they write the biases of their algorithms, are encouraging certain people to speak and for content to be created in a particular fashion that's much more emotional than it tends to be rational.
Serrazio's research highlights how social media platforms driven by algorithms that prioritize engagement favor content that evokes strong emotions. This tendency sets the stage for the amplification of outrage and polarization. Next, we have Tobias Rose Stockwell, a writer, designer, and media researcher who has extensively studied the impact of social media on society. He discusses how social media algorithms, although not necessarily designed to provoke outrage, inadvertently amplify the most incendiary content.
It was not Zuckerberg and Dorsey, scheming like Mr. Burns and trying to get people angry for the sake of profit. It was really, kind of they stumbled into this quite on accident. They built a few really key products that fundamentally shifted the way we consume information online. And there's these natural reservoirs of attention that come from outrage porn, from a disposition towards the extreme, the incendiary. And if you build an algorithm that rank orders things for attention, then we will naturally gravitate towards that kind of content.
Rose Stockwell shows us that this amplification wasn't part of some grand scheme, but rather a byproduct of algorithms designed to prioritize attention, which naturally gravitates towards extreme content. Our third expert is David Troy, a serial entrepreneur and technologist who is focused on disinformation and social networks. He explores how our assumption of rationality leaves us vulnerable to manipulation by these very algorithms.
But it's more like, who would you like to have the beer with, ultimately, and that's kind of just how we do things. So, I think that's being used against us by our enemies. Our presumed rationality makes us very easy to manipulate using social, algorithms and information warfare and everything else, and we just are blind to it for the most part. So it's a very challenging situation.
Troy's insights reveal a sobering reality. We think we're making logical decisions, but actually our feelings often get in the way. This presumed rationality is often exploited by these algorithms, making us blind to the manipulation happening behind the scenes. Finally, we hear from Ariel Hazel, a researcher at the University of Michigan who specializes in the intersection of media, technology, and society. She offers a vision for how social media platforms could be reimagined to promote a healthier news ecosystem.
Well, I don't know that there's much we can do legislatively for First Amendment reasons, but if somebody made me CEO of Facebook tomorrow, I think that we know what kinds of information is good. And I think if I were the CEO of Facebook, I would be developing partnerships with news media and making sure they get paid for the content that's on there, because part of the reason why news is struggling so much is the numbers are down. They're having a hard time keeping newsrooms staffed. And so Facebook makes a lot of money off of news and people using Facebook as a news. I'm picking on Facebook, but really it's all social media sites.
Mm-hmm.
And giving news organizations cuts of the traffic would be one way to get sort of dollars back in newsrooms and get journalists who are actual sort of fact-finding journalists on the job would be one way to do that. The algorithms that they have that, they design them to maximize shareholder profit, which that's their role and that's how they see their role in the world. But if you wanted to design those algorithms to maximize democracy, you could. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but you could amplify good information, separate sort of actual news and journalism from political commentary, not avoiding any political commentary, because a lot of it is really interesting and really thoughtful, and there's nothing wrong with people having takes about things. So there are a few things that you could do were you in, if you had the levers of the algorithm at your disposal.
Hazel suggests that by participating with news organizations in redesigning algorithms to prioritize factual information, social media platforms could play a pivotal role in supporting high-quality journalism and reducing the spread of misinformation. Social media has undeniably changed the way we consume and interact with information. But as we've heard today, these changes come with significant consequences. The amplification of outrage and the erosion of rational discourse are not inevitable. They are results of choices made in how algorithms are designed and deployed. By rethinking these systems, there's hope for a more informed and less polarized society. Thank you for joining us on Outrage Science Bites. If you enjoyed this episode, you may want to check out the long-form Outrage Overload podcast. Visit outrageoverload.net for past episodes, links, and contact information. Stay tuned for more daily episodes as we continue to explore the forces shaping our world. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay informed.